everyone. Thanks for joining and welcome to the webcast, Creating a New Online Customer Experience for Public Libraries. Today I'm happy to introduce Gar Sydnor, EBSCO's Vice President of Discovery Innovation for Public Libraries and K-12. He will be your speaker today. As a reminder, this event will be recorded and the recording will be sent to all registrants as well as posted on our blog at discovery.ebsco.com/calls. Thank you and enjoy.
Thanks, Rachel, and good afternoon, everyone. And I'm looking forward to this discussion and hopefully some questions afterwards. As Rachel indicated, I'm the Vice President of Discovery Innovation, which is essentially a fancy way of saying that I work on our discovery product and really trying to expose the resources that the libraries already have to a wider audience. And today we're going to talk about how that works for your online customers. I've been working in public libraries and schools for about 25 years. I started with EBSCO about about that time ago, and working with EBSCO Host, and I've been working with Discovery over the past few years. So the first thing I want to talk about is just an average public library site. Now, there are already these existing conventions out there for how we lay out a public library web page. And we know a few things, even without reading OCLC or Pew Reports statistics on how users view websites and libraries. But the first thing I want to point out here is a pretty nice site. It's got some book jackets, it's got some colorful navigation, and up in the top right is something that you see in just about every library site, and that's a white search box. Now, for me and probably most of the people on this webinar, we all know that if you type in a title, author, subject, note, you're going to get some results. What most users don't know is that if you type in something other than that, you're likely going to get a message that's not as satisfactory. And in fact, what you'll probably get is some type of prompt to go ahead and search more and double down on your frustration, all the while not being able to search outside of that public catalog. So when we think about what library website experiences can be, we could go in a lot of different directions, but the one direction I want to go today is where we've sort of settled with Discovery, and that is that we don't want to make the user think. We want to expose your library resources. And we don't actually have to start from scratch. There are plenty of resources out there. I mentioned the Pew and OCLC reports, but this is a library talk, so I might as well start with a book recommendation. And this one, Don't Make Me Think by Steve Krug, is a really good one. This comes to me courtesy of our research group at EBSCO that does all things research in terms of studying patron habits and how they use software and how we can make it better. And there are just a few that I'll pull out here, a few quotes. The first one is that we don't read pages, we scan them. And the easiest way to demonstrate this is if you look at any given page, if you squint your eyes and make it a little blurry in your vision and look for the clear parts, that's where you'll sort of see the things that stand out. And the corollary to that is that we actually don't read instructions, we just figure out how things work. If you have a smartphone, I'm sure there's some blurry items on that smartphone that you've never ventured into. And the way that works with a web page is that most users know how to make a catalog search. They might know where your library hours are. They might know where your account information is if you put it in the right place. But they're not really going much further down the page than that. They're not really venturing much past the home page than that. So we could pay somebody like Mr. Krug $1,000 an hour and have them come in and redo our library websites, or we could sort of take a few conventions that he mentions in this book and apply them here. So why did our patrons end up like this? Why does our general audience have this expectation? Well, it's what they get in every other retail experience. That white box means I'm searching everything that that vendor has. If you're searching for something other than books on Amazon, it's not going to make you find another search box. And the same is true on any department site or most other websites. That white box up there at the top or somewhere in the top right, top left, is where we expect to find a search box for everything on the website. Another great website that I love, and I like the way it's organized here, is also very typical of library websites. And this is where we end up putting a lot of links to different services and what we're going to focus on today, and particularly some of the online content that every library has. You see here it's under research. A couple of issues here just to start off with. Number one, when we study and when we test the word research or databases with most of our users, you get sort of a blank stare. You could ask them, do you ever look up ratings on cars or on health topics, and they'd say, sure, but if you ask them if they do research or they use databases, they'd say, no way, that's for students or for somebody doing much more extensive work. I'm just looking at ratings. So there are a couple of things that happen here. First of all, most users aren't going below that home page, and when they do, you tend to lose a large majority of them. And when you get below that home page, you tend to find some type of a list of database sites. They're either categorized by subject heading, or maybe you have to search within a list of databases only to get a result of another database, and you lose another majority. So now, you know, if you're losing 90% here and then another 90% here, and then when you actually click on a database for a lot of libraries, that means, especially if they don't have a proxy server, that you have to log in before you even place a search, and you've just pretty much killed any of the interest that you had in those databases. So what we're going to talk about today for that online user is something that's much better, and that is, do we want to show them that list of databases buried beneath several menus on your website, or do you want to give them one search box? This is actually Hennepin County's Discovery site, and you can see here this is their main page, and they've got one easy way to view their physical materials and one easy way to search their Discovery items. So what we're really talking about here is a change in what the online user has access to with most public libraries. Up to this point, it's been, for a lot of libraries, an experience in being able to see whether the library has something, to place a hold, maybe check your account. These are very short sessions, and they have limited use. You're not using all the things that the library has. The other thing about it is when they're searching, that library catalog is actually a very, very small piece of data when you compare it to all the online access that libraries have, whether that's through a state library or through their own databases that they purchase. And you can use whatever analogy you want. You know, a grain of sand versus a beach, or whatever type of relationship you want to create, but it is massive compared to what is actually in the library catalog. So we have all that amount of data, and it's a little bit it's a lot inaccessible for the average user. And what's happening is they're going out to sites like a Google, like a Wikipedia, or some of these blogs and news sites, and they're searching for this information back and forth. It's pretty good at facts and giving them some limited information, but they're not getting the really good stuff. And a lot of times they'll be hitting a paywall. And so what we're doing is just a simple supply and demand equation. We know every library, every public library has a pretty large amount of online content, a massive supply, if you will. And those users are out there fulfilling their demand somewhere other than the library when they could be actually on the library site. And what we're going to talk about in the online experience today is how we can use Discovery to connect that supply with that demand. So what happens when a library implements Discovery? There are a couple of great things, and then some not so obvious things, which I think you'll like hearing. The first thing is, if you happen to have any students that are college bound, or even frankly just students that are trying to get through high school, we know a couple of things. First of all, for students that are in college right now and doing well and being able to write research topics and papers, we wanted to know where they learn those skills. And they learn them as freshmen in high school. So if a school library doesn't have access to these resources, which happens to a lot of communities, the public library can be a really good backup for that student to not only be exposed to the databases, but also to learn how to use these Discovery sites. Why is that important? Because Discovery is pretty prolific in the academic world. There are over 6,000 installations alone of EBSCO Discovery. We are a market leader around the world. But why that's relevant is that in your community, they are more than likely going to run into a Discovery engine if they happen to go to college. And certainly, there's a good chance that they'll run into EBSCO's Discovery service itself. The other obvious thing is that database usage goes up. The usage right now for most online databases is not what most libraries would like it to be. They'd like to expose not only the idea that libraries have something other than books, but also the idea that there's a lot more content there that they can get access to. I just pulled a few statistics from some of our library sites. There are a few examples here. One is Richland County, another is Hennepin County, and then the state of Ohio for schools. And you can just browse these statistics right now, but the increases are dramatic from before EBSCO Discovery implementation to after, magnitudes difference. And you can imagine what that would look like for your library, whatever your baseline is. to aim for 10 times that usage, 100 times that usage, 1,000 times that usage. That's what we're talking about here in terms of payoff or value for why you would make this switch. The other aspect is an answer to a question that I get often, and I'm sure some of you do that also work in the library world. If someone comes across you and they say, oh, you work in libraries, how are libraries these days? And you sort of smile to yourself and say, well, they're just fine. And then the next question is, are you guys worried about ebooks or Amazon? As if, you know, libraries have lost their place in this electronic and digital world. And this is where I think the answer to not only the purpose for libraries is very similar to what the answer will be for your online content and for your online users. When you have a better informed public, what you're actually doing is you're providing them resources. And I pulled this off of Morton Grove Public Library's page. I'm going to make sure I reference that. It's a great site, but it's the difference between premium resources and just what you can find on the open web. And it becomes immediately apparent to not only libraries, but also to that average user you run into on the street, that yes, it does matter who wrote that piece. It does matter whether or not it was a professional or an expert in the field. Was that information fact-checked? Was there some type of editorial process? Was it well organized? And even more so today, where the news is so polarizing and where, frankly, quite a few of the news sites could be categorized as entertainment news as opposed to in-depth and research news. The point of view is generally going to be more neutral with the premium resources. And so the same answer that I would give for libraries is the same answer I would give for why you need discovery and why these libraries need to be providing their audiences this online content. And it's this. For hundreds of years, one of the primary missions of public libraries is to provide access to resources that people could not necessarily afford on their own. And this is what we're talking about today, with more ad blockers, with more prompts to pay for a subscription to that newspaper or that favorite magazine that you have. It's going to be harder and harder for the general public to get access to this quality information. It's a classic have and have not situation, and this is where libraries could be filling the gap right now. They have the supply, and we just need to meet the demand. And when you saw those usage stats from before, you can see how well it meets that demand. And the reason why that's relevant is because most of our users still think libraries are just about books. That's great. It's wonderful. I'm still going to read a book as opposed to maybe download an ebook. But on the other hand, if that's all they think it is, they're sort of missing out on all the wonderful things that the libraries do. And I pulled this quote because I thought it was interesting, but it was from an 18-year-old girl, and just said, you know, I don't use the library because I'm not a book person. And the whole idea that the library might have some other services or resources of interest had never even occurred to her. And when you go back to where we started this all, where we were looking at sort of websites and where we are right now and the typical design and conventions that you see out there, it's no wonder. There's so much information on there. They're really going in with those blinders. They're blurring out all the different detail and the wordiness of it, and they're going right to a catalog search or to hours or to their My Account, and they're not aware of those other resources. And certainly that's not all the libraries. There's some great examples of libraries that are making some interesting changes here, but that's one of the general areas which we can address. And when we do address it, the perception changes quite a bit. So students not only in schools, but also students that may be headed to college that are in your community, they may not have access to these materials from their school library. Media centers can get it through your library. They'll be better prepared for it because they're actually going to face it. You know, colleges don't want you to fail out the first year. They want you to stay there for 4 years or even 5 or 6 years, unfortunately. You're fulfilling that age-old purpose that libraries have always had, which is to be that source of trusted information that's been written by experts that you can certainly trust for accuracy. And then I know this sort of sounds highbrow, but this is the way, I think this is really legitimate. If you're a true believer in the public library mission, we need to have a better informed society, and the way to do that is much better than what they're going to get on open web searches and some of the content that's out there. The libraries have it, and we can put it in their hands a lot easier. And if you threw out all of the above, then, well, of course, yes, the database usage will go up. It's almost an easy guarantee to make for most of our libraries. They see the usage almost overnight spike in the first month. So you might be asking yourself, well, that's kind of nice, Gar. Well, how does this work exactly? What are you guys doing? Well, the first thing I want to point out is that I'm not going to sit here and give you a technical discussion. It's a little bit hard to explain all the inner workings, but there's a couple of points that I want to get across here, and they are these. First of all, this is not just about EBSCO products. We have Gale, Newsbank, JSTOR, Infobase, a variety of database vendors, hundreds of database vendors, where all of their data is sitting on our servers in one place. This gives us some extreme advantages, but the ones I want to point out are these. If all that data is in one place, then you can index it together. And if you can index it together, then you can look at all kinds of relevancy improvements and faster speeds and all the things that libraries didn't like about federated search when it came out. This is not federated search, and I'll go into that in a second. The other thing is, and this is the first time this has happened in the library world, so you've got EBSCO and Gale, who in the public library market compete a lot, having their data all in one place and being able to index together. The library just tells us what databases they have, we flip them on, and you go. And the reason why that's unique is because these are the advantages that some of the vendors outside the library world have had. You know, if you had to go to every website every time you search Google, you'd be there a long time. That's the advantage they have. They're indexing the data. The other thing that they have is, besides that big data advantage, is that they have a lot of users. They have web scale, which is another just fancy way of saying we have a lot of users. We have that web scale with EBSCO's Discovery right now, so we can look and see searches and predict what people are looking for even before they finish typing in their search terms. We know, in fact, almost 3/4 of the time what people are looking for. They're known item searches before they even finish typing. And that's something that has not been possible with small data sets, certainly not with small library catalogs, and it is possible now with Discovery. So just to give you a quick diagram, imagine taking your licensed content, your ebooks, your audiobooks, you could even load your physical collection if you wanted, your films and music, and putting it all in one place and indexing it together and providing it with one search box against EBSCO's Discovery Service. That's about as simple as I can put it, but that's really as simple as you need to know. There are a lot of advantages that come with that. Now, as I pointed out, this has been in the academic world for a little while, for several years actually, and that's not surprising because they tend to rely quite a bit on electronic resources over their physical collection, and they needed this product a lot earlier than some of the public libraries do. But it would be foolish to just drop an academic experience into a public library environment. There's some changes and some tweaks that you need to make that I'm going to show you that we do in Discovery now. The first thing is that we know and we study students and library patrons' habits when they search for information. And this is not just published surveys or asking user surveys. These are ethnographic studies where we're actually watching people use their different products, use our products, use other products, use the open web, so we can glean those things that may not be in those conventional books that you could read on web usage, and we can adapt that to the public library usage. And here's some of the things we found. First of all, it sounds pretty obvious, but it has to be easy to use. Google and Wikipedia are first in mind for a number of reasons, but one of them is that they're quick and familiar, and they're pretty easy to absorb that information. They don't necessarily give you back everything in the kitchen sink. They have that way of giving you the right result at the top of the fold. And as I mentioned before, because of the web scale and the big data that we have, we can do that as well, and I'll show you that in a second. It also has to be fast. If it's slow, it's almost a 100% indicator that someone's going to walk away from that service, or in this case, click away from it and go use something else. This is one of the problems that federated search has, is because it was only as fast as the fastest database search. Particularly for our young users, it has to be smart. And smart can mean a couple of things. It could be smart in the way the navigation works, or it could be smart in the way the results come back. If you search on a particular topic and you get some wonky result that seems out of left field, that's sort of that dumb result I'm talking about. If you ask Google for the scientific notation for caffeine, you're going to get that right away in the top result. And that's the same type of response you should expect when you search Discovery, which is, if I have a simple question, give me a simple answer. And those smart results are what make the service stickier for first-time users and encourage them to come back over and over again. I'll get into that in a second as well. Easy to navigate, sort of an obvious one, but when we say easy to navigate, we mean that we don't want you to look through the main results. I had someone ask me that the other day and said, well, Discovery, why would I want to get back 1 million results? You know, can't you do better than that? And I said, well, if you're only going to type in one word, given the database we have, it's a massive search. However, we can do quite a bit of relevancy based on what other people have searched, what they've looked at, and the relevancy ranking is quite superior when you have big data and also web scale searching. So that easy to navigate comes into play there, and make sure that we have the right result that you're looking for at the top of the screen. Oops, one last screen. And then finally, it has to be readable. We mentioned at the top of the line, it needs to be easy to find the result that you're looking for. And I'll show you some pictures of that here in a second. So probably a lot of you thought when you came in here, oh, we're going to talk about federated search, and that Discovery is some version of federated search. And it's nothing like it, actually. The only similarity that Discovery has with federated search is that you have one search box. After that, completely different. So all of those things that we looked at before, easy to use, easy to navigate, smart, readable, fast, like Google or Wikipedia, none of those equal the federated search experience. Federated search is like taking individual services and just sort of clapping them together. They have no awareness of each other. They don't have the ability to run different facets or filters against the same databases. The presentation can be really lousy sometimes. Sometimes you have to sift through different result sets to actually find what you're looking for. It's only as fast as the fastest database, or as the slowest database that you're searching. That data presentation, because of all those different resources, can look disjointed. There's been no normalization on the data. If any of you have tried implementing this, and I know in public libraries it's been a fairly small percentage, you know that the connectors are hard to maintain. The relevancy is almost non-existent. If you don't index the data together, you can't do quite a bit of the relevancy that you would need to do. This next point is really important, and I mentioned this before. When you're going down into a database list, it's very hard to get people to log into something before they've used it if they've never used it before. And so if you don't have guest access, which Discovery provides, then you're probably going to lose a lot of your users before you even had them search your service. With our guest access, you can actually search, get the metadata results, and then if you want to see the full text that the library has access to, then we'll ask you to log in, either through your easy proxy or through single sign-on, or if they happen to be in the library through IP authentication. And I've heard it described before, federated search is just another wrapper for competing services. There are no research starters, which I'm going to show you in a second what those are and how they work. And then finally, the easiest comment to highlight is that it's been around for almost 20 years, and it's just not widely adopted for all the reasons I've been through. So it's not federated search. We settled that. How is it better than Google or Wikipedia? Well, we went over that before, but the quality of the information is definitely important. And the idea that that you can give them something familiar and easy to use like they've had with Google and Wikipedia is important as well. And we'll show you that as well. So how does Discovery work better than the way databases are listed now? If this is the way that you're presenting your databases, then the issue that you have here is that you're forcing, if you go back to that book title, your users to think. And if I'm looking for reviews on an automobile, where do I look for Subaru? Is it under business? I'm not sure. Do I look under magazines and newspapers? Do I look under I don't know, maybe science and technology? I'm not sure where to find that particular topic. So we're going to also challenge the notion that we even call these things databases. When we implement a discovery service, we don't spend a lot of time highlighting this is EBSCO data or this is Gale data or any of that. And as I said before, most people say we don't need databases and we definitely don't do any research. It doesn't mean anything to anyone. But if we change that to, do you have an interest in consumer health topics? Do you have an interest in business topics, personal finance, retirement, hobbies, biographies? You start to expose that data a little bit more. And that data is what is you spend a lot of money on to get access to in your library, and that's what we want to help your library patrons find more access to. And even better, if you can show them covers, we can make the experience from not just searching an index, but we can actually make it browsable. So if you type in a certain magazine name, you can search within that journal name right there in our service. So I mentioned these before. How do we do this magic, if you were? How do we do that Google magic, or that magic you get on the open web? First of all, we have enhanced autocomplete. And this is based on all the searches that are happening over all the libraries across all the Discovery installations. As I said before, 75% of the time we know what you're looking for before you even finish typing it in. It starts on the first letter. It is that quick. It is that lightning fast. And you'll notice that the suggestions are not alphabetical. They're based on popularity so that we can get to that search term right away. It works especially well with trending topics. Anytime you have something in the news that pops up, you want this autocomplete to catch it pretty quickly and start to learn from those searches that are being prompted in. So it's millions of terms. We make sure that it's definitely ordered by popularity, and we're updating it daily all the time. The other thing I want to show are these research starters. I mentioned this before, and you'll notice here I searched drone warfare on a demo site, and at the very top is something called a research starter. When we looked at the searches, we discovered that if we knew 75% of the searches, then we ought to be able to provide a research starter for those. And here's the reason why. Research showed that whether you were a PhD or a doctoral student or even an 8th grader looking for information, you appreciated the chance to get a shallow dive or to dip your toe in the water, even if you were an expert in the field, before you got the 90,000 results, the million results. It was something that would allow you to get those simple answers to those simple questions, something that you could read very easily, perhaps come up with other different terms, perhaps find out some other suggested bibliographies, and I'll just show you one of these things here. There's 70,000 research starters in our system now, and they also come up almost 3/4 of the time now on every search that's typed in. So users can go in, they get a Wikipedia-like result. The one big difference is it's always from a source that they can trust and that they can cite, whether it's for a paper or whether or not they want to make sure they have real facts and real data. It'll have images. It's generally a little bit shorter than a Wikipedia article, and then it'll have some fantastic bibliography. So if all you had was a simple request, this is the simple answer that gives them that sticky session that allows them to go back and use the service over and over again and keep having success. It's probably one of the more popular things that we offer, and this research starter database is included with all of our EBSCO Discovery installations. The enhanced autocomplete also works pretty well if you are like me and would spell centrifugal with C's and Q's and all the wrong letters. It can help you find the right term based on fuzzy matching. Again, this is a big data web scale type of feature, and it's what's available here in our service as well. This is a funny one because we have the facets across all of these databases, and the one in the middle is the EBSCO Discovery facet, and you can see how closely it resembles the Amazon one over on the right. Users are used to seeing that. It appears on the left-hand part of our results screen, and a really funny test result came out just last week from our research department, which was when we tested for library terms, library patrons and students didn't know or didn't recognize the terms Boolean. They didn't recognize what databases would be. They certainly didn't recognize what filters or limiters, what limiters or facets would be, but they do recognize the word filters. So I've got to train myself to start using the term filters because that's apparently what patrons understand the best. This is a really great feature, and you can imagine of all the online content that you have, all those titles that you have, if the patron actually types in that exact title, and here's a great one for a public library, in this case, Consumer Reports, you can actually search within that journal itself. So you can think of all the times where you were just trying to find an article from a particular journal or a particular magazine, and this gives you a quick way to just type in the journal name and then go ahead and type in your search. A very easy way to do that. So that's the conclusion of our presentation. I'll just leave you with one thought. I had someone tell me the difference between searching the open web and just searching quality information, and it came down to this. If all you need is a quick fact or a quick answer, your Googles and Wikipedias, your open web of the world are fantastic resources for that. They give you quick answers. But if you need the context, you need the story, then you need some of these resources that are generally behind paywalls. They're behind subscriptions for the vendors, and it's only going to happen more and more as these ad blockers start to come up and more media sites and journals tend to block access to their sites. And I'll leave you with a quote from Neil Gaiman because I think it applies not only to the service but also to the libraries. He said, Google can give you 100,000 answers, but a librarian can give you the right one. And I would propose that if they have a discovery service, you can also give them back the right one using our discovery service across all your online content. So that's what we wanted to present to you today. This is how we're engaging our online users. The usage can go way up, dramatically up, and we're looking forward to adding more libraries to the service to prove it. And I'll be happy to take any questions that you have now.
Excellent. Thank you, Gar. So let's, I've asked for questions. Let's wait just a minute and see if any come in. I don't see any yet. Oh, here's one from Mary. Also, let's see, she says, do you have any sample Polaris libraries that have implemented EDS?
Yes, we do. We have a half a dozen. The ones that come to mind are Richland Library in South Carolina. Let's see, I think there's an O'Fallon Library. I don't know what state that's in. And if you contact me offline or contact your EBSCO rep, they can give you a list of others. But we have, I was just at a Polaris library this week, so but we have plenty of examples of those.
Great, thank you. And from Michael, what is the best way to see the discovery in production?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? You broke up at the last part.
Oh, sure. What is the best way to see the discovery service in production?
To go use it at a library of one of ours. Again, same answer. If you contact me offline, I can send you a list of libraries that have the same ILS that you have or have the same characteristics in terms of size or demographics. And because the guest access is turned on, you'll be able to search them and see what the experience is like. Every library is a one-off, so it's a good question to ask. We can show you in-person demos or do them in person over a webinar, but we customize every implementation to work best for that particular library because we're not only highlighting their online content, but we're also helping their users navigate to different resources better as well. And depending on what you have subscriptions to, your needs might be different. So each EBSCO Discovery implementation includes a subscription to an app. It's essentially an app store that'll allow you to add widgets, and if you're not inclined to do that yourself, we have engineers that will do it for you as part of that subscription.
Excellent, thank you. And from Amy, our federated search is bundled with our A to Z journal in database list. Does Discovery provide a similar feature?
Yes, Full Text Finder comes with our Discovery product, and that is the next generation of the A to Z product that we have now.
Very nice. I don't see any more. Oh, let's see. We do have one more. Tim asked, are our library holdings in the catalog included in the search results?
Library catalog results can be included, and we actually, because the library databases are so much smaller than the online content that you have, we'll actually tweak the relevancy. So you would expect if you typed in a bestseller, like I just picked one out of the air, Gone Girl, that instead of getting magazine articles about that, you'll get the actual library holdings at the top of the list because we know, based on aggregate search results, that that's what the patron's actually looking for. So catalog results can be included if you like, and they can be boosted in the results for better relevancy.
Great, thank you. And Michael asked, this seems to be the same as the very idea behind RDA replacing MARC 21. Is or will Discovery be compatible with OCLC and the new RDA implementation?
That's a good question. I'm not sure I can give a sophisticated answer to that because I'm not aware of all the issues there. But I do know that our primary focus is making sure that the online content that is non-MARC is available to be viewed. Having said that, MARC records of any type can be loaded in the system and indexed and used with our service. Any special features that might appear off of RDAized records or any of that, it would just depend on what that feature is. And Michael wants to contact me separately. I'd be happy to give him a much better answer to that question.
Okay, excellent. And Beth asks, could magazine/periodical holdings be included in the search results?
Can you repeat again? I'm sorry, it got muffled.
Oh, sure. Could magazine/periodical holdings be included in the search results?
Yes.
Great. And Marie asks, does ES integrate third-party products such as Novelist?
Yes.
Okay, great. And Stephanie asks, do you have examples of libraries using the EBSCO Discovery System with Koha and or Evergreen? Yes, yes also.
Yes, yes, and yes.
Simple answers, great. Amy wants to know, will it work with our easy proxy authentication? Also yes.
Yes, it will.
Great. And ebook integration?
Yeah, so for ebook integration right now, obviously it works quite well with EBSCO ebooks. And for the other vendors, if you have MARC records in the catalog, we can certainly point them out for access there. There's a little bit of, we're waiting, you know, the way it looks like in the marketplace right now, you have some vendors that are allowing the libraries to load MARC records and then linking out to their service and handling the checkouts there. A lot of the ILSs are starting to include the APIs and do the checkouts right there in the catalog. For us right now, we're using the model of allowing you to load the MARC records from an Overdrive or a 3M or One Click Digital. I don't want to leave anybody out, obviously EBSCO books. And you can link to them there, and they will be included in the Discovery Service. If it's a vendor that you don't have MARC records for, we do have ways to extend the search to those resources in a custom pane on the right-hand side of the result list, and that's something that anybody that's demoing the product can show you how that works.
Excellent. And Michael asked a specific content question. Is Discovery inclusive of Vanity Press genealogy resources such as Mountain Press?
That question I can't answer, but I'd be happy to answer that question offline, and we'll send you an email response to that.
Okay, great. I'm not sure of that specific content question either.
Yeah, I think in general context, there's some genealogical information, maybe some databases aren't necessarily appropriate for all public library installations because it would put in an awful lot of noise in the result list. But we have enough public library installations that you can certainly go and look and see how they do it and get answers, real live answers to your questions. Great, thank you. And it looks like that concludes our question and answer time. There's no more coming in at this time, so Gar, I'll let you conclude. Thank you everyone for your time, and as I mentioned before, we have a variety of ways to give you real demos of the product and go through different feature sets, answer some of the questions that came up out of this response. Just contact me or contact your EBSCO salesperson, and we'd be happy to arrange that as soon as possible. And otherwise, I hope you have a happy holiday, and thanks for your time today. Thanks, everyone. The recording will be sent out to you and posted on our blog at discovery.ebsco.com/pulse. Thanks.